welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to talk about economic development in our city, what the city is doing and where we're headed. And I want you to meet our new Economic Development Director, Chuck Rigney. Welcome to Hampton and welcome to Round Robin.
Well, thanks very much. I'm looking forward to this discussion and I'm definitely excited to be here in Hampton.
It is great to have you. And first, I want to start like all the way from ground zero. Okay. Why does a city have to do economic development? Don't businesses just come where they need to be and we could spend our tax money on other things?
Yes, the answer to that short answer is that if every economic development agency in the entire world closed, commerce continues to happen. Businesses will come in, businesses will leave. Our job and what we're paid to do is to make certain that we make everybody aware of the opportunities in Hampton and facilitate the growth of that commerce or that expansion in commerce or the recruitment of companies in. If we can touch it and lay claim to the ability to have made a difference in the selection of that for Hampton, then that's what we get paid to do.
And is that where incentives come in too? If company A is deciding between cities 1, 2, 3, and 4, and City 1 doesn't play, what happens?
Well, first and foremost, yes, there is it's a very competitive world out there. But incentives are really the icing on the cake. A company will not choose a location just based on incentives.
Right.
Because if it isn't fitting into their business plan, if they don't have the right workforce, if they don't have the right kind of health care, excuse me, if they don't have the same kind of environment for their employees that they're looking for, they won't make that decision no matter how much money you incent them. If they are all about the incentives, red flags should go off. Absolutely.
But that could tip the scale at the very end, I would assume.
Yes, and oftentimes, again, it's a tough part of the business because we are in a very competitive world, and they know how the game is played, and so do we. And if it comes down to making a public policy case for the use of some of the new money that would be received as a result of that company coming in, then it's a good argument to have. Or we leverage the value of our land. Those kinds of things where with as less upfront money as we can possibly do, I think that's a better and more prudent public policy approach.
Well, now that's something I think people don't understand. They think that we're just giving away incentives.
Right.
Explain how that works in terms of the tax money that's going to come in and how that is what we use. It's money that we wouldn't get if the company didn't come in, and we don't give back all of it.
Right. Well, I think there are 5 criteria that I always like to look at, or from a good public policy standpoint. 1, is it a significant capital investment? 2, is it a job generator? 3, do they have a 10, 15-year business plan that would stand up to scrutiny and under any bank situation? 4th, does it fit into the overall economic strategy of the city? Is it something that the city is wanting to see happen? And 5th and finally is, if not for some type of love, incentive, or performance sharing arrangement, would that opportunity go elsewhere? And those 5 things, if you look at them, oftentimes will drive what we may or may not be able to do. And I'm a big fan of performance-based incentives. And by that I mean, if a company is going to be generating new revenue into the city of Hampton that we otherwise would not have, then sharing a portion of that based on their own business plan over a period of time, I think is a better way to go, because if they earn it, they get it. If they don't, they don't.
That makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you've been in this game a long time. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you've done before.
Well, I was fortunate. I did have some experience over here on the peninsula when I used to be in the commercial real estate world. I worked for a company that helped develop several buildings in Hampton 30 plus years ago. And then I worked for the Virginia Peninsula Economic Development Council, marketing the entire peninsula, and that was the precursor to the Hampton Roads Economic Development Alliance that united Southside with the peninsula. And then I've been working with the city of Norfolk for the past 21 years before coming to Hampton 2 months ago.
Norfolk has had some pretty impressive successes. I mean, I'm old enough to remember Norfolk when downtown was a bit of a wasteland, especially on the weekends.
Absolutely.
And it is anything but that now. How did that come about? What is your role in that?
You have to have, it's interesting, I drove down Granby Street in Norfolk just the other night, Saturday night, and it was packed. But I remember when I first started there, and it was nothing. There was nothing. And you have to get a signature and strategic corner filled with something that will bring people into the downtown. You got to have events and opportunities for people to come in and find out what downtown is all about. And then you have to have a game plan that kind of builds on that. And I think we have this here in Hampton, a council that is aggressive, forward-thinking, and really wants to make things pop and happen. And over time, Granby Street began to build, and there were setbacks, and there were some major wins that we got. And I think the same thing, I can feel it here in Hampton. There's some momentum here in this city that you can feel it. And momentum is a very fickle thing, though, and you have to make sure that you seize it when you can, because it's awful hard to get back. But Hampton is already on the right path, and I'm hoping that our efforts under me coming over as the director will help advance a lot of those and get some additional wins for us, and really kind of spark the kind of same kind of resurgence that we saw in downtown Norfolk.
So what kinds of things, and I know you can't say, specific companies or specific names, but what kinds of things are you and your department working on?
Well, first of all, for our downtown area, we want some more density. We want to bring people living, working, and playing in our downtown, and we want some additional retail that might go along with that additional density. You have to have a certain number of people for certain kinds of retail to come in. For example, I know we all want a grocery store or something downtown that's a little bit more convenient for our residents, and we're beginning to build that case. Will it be a full-size grocery store? Very difficult to say. That's an extremely tough business, but something right-sized. So we're certainly looking on the lookout for that. We're looking for better and higher-end type of events, entertainment, eatertainment type concepts. Anything to bring additional people downtown. There's an awful lot going on downtown already. The Air and Space Museum, the events that are held downtown, the Queensway restaurants, not even mentioning Phoebus, which is really rocking right now.
Phoebus is happening.
Phoebus is really happening, and it's an exciting thing to see. And just a few years ago, it wasn't.
No.
And now it is one of the hottest, most eclectic, and coolest places for anybody in the entire region to visit. And we've got to do more of that type of thing downtown as well.
And in other parts of the city, I mean, in terms of jobs or companies, I mean, I know that because I'm a shopper and an eater, I tend to think of those types of things. But jobs, things for our kids to go to college and come back and work. We've not really been a place where there's a lot of kind of corporate locations, office locations. I mean, we have some.
Right.
I'm not meaning to ignore anybody, but.
Well, the assets that we have over here, especially relative to our educational institutions, and one of the things that having been in Norfolk and then to have the opportunity to take a look at Hampton, the Hampton public school system, and the strides that they've made in getting the workforce ready for the jobs of today and the future, speak very highly, I think, to the commitment by the city and the Hampton City Schools to really educating their kids in ways that will prepare them for those type of jobs. The types of jobs that I think we really can get are the higher end jobs for those folks that are looking to feed off of the accelerator facility, NASA Langley Research Center, the highly skilled and technical jobs that are part of the shipyard. And more importantly, there's also a commitment on the part of the city to do workforce development. And we have new workforce initiatives that we're taking under the economic development wing that I really think will also take children that can make a career-sustaining, very good living by getting certifications in the trade schools and feeding into Thomas Nelson Community College and through that onto other types of certifications in the welding programs or the other kinds of skill sets that really could, and we really have job openings for.
Right, welding, computing, cyber, there's so many things that aren't in your traditional BA, sort of programs that have openings now and that are wonderful jobs.
Well, there is, because it's great to create jobs, but our task and goal and assignment from our leaders in Hampton is to make sure that Hampton residents get at the front of those lines for those jobs. Mm-hmm. We in Hampton don't care that if a Hampton worker works in Newport News at a great job but makes their home here in Hampton, then great. But for those companies that do want to come into Hampton as well, we want to make sure that we can get our Hampton residents at the front of those lines when those job opportunities open up. And we have to make sure that they're ready, and our skill set training programs, the ability to help Hampton residents that need assistance in resume writing or dressing for success or all of those kinds of things that make a little bit of a difference. Those are the kind of things that we're going to be hopefully seeing a lot more of, and we have a really good person on our staff, Pam Kroom, who is handling our workforce initiatives for us right now, and there's some exciting new things happening in that field as well within our department.
That's great. What are, if you're pitching, and I know the pitch is different if it's a office or a light manufacturer or a retailer, but what are Hampton's best assets? You've been here now long enough to really take a look.
Well, we have a great workforce. We've got a great location. We've got a quality of life. We've got excellent health care. And we have a school system that you would be proud to have your children in. Those are the things that I think Hampton can point to with pride and say, if you are looking for a location, and those are the important things, along with a lower cost of operations than most of the other areas that we try to be competitive with. Companies' bottom line is the bottom line. And we have that here in Hampton, but we also have all those other things that companies absolutely have to have. If you don't have workforce, if you don't have a quality of life, if you don't have access to health care, and if you don't have a good school system, you have a much harder way to go. But here in Hampton, we have those things, along with the uniqueness of being on the bay, close to the ocean, a lot of riverfront, and the quality of life here is, is pretty nice.
How do we, I know that we compete to some extent with other cities in the region, because when a company lands here, we're more likely to get the jobs, people are more likely to live here, there's more property tax revenues, and it benefits our city directly. But in terms of being a region and luring large entities to the region, becoming a Research Triangle type entity, how do we work together in that way?
Well, it's a really good question, and the most exciting thing, and I think that the Peninsula has led the region on this, and the City of Hampton Council just approved a resolution for the Regional Infrastructure Financing Authority. And for the first time, we'll have the ability to partner with our sister locations, sister cities, to invest in one another's projects. And when you start sharing the money, that's when regionalism gets real. It's nice that we all say we compete friendly with one another and all that, but the fact of the matter is when a company comes into any one of our localities, all the tax revenue is generated specifically to that locality.
Right.
And it's a competitive world. With the kind of investment that we can do in one another's projects to help land it, make it work, and return some investment back to us, sharing the money is a really good way to start really making regionalism work. And
that's exciting too, especially if you look at the sort of high-tech world now, I mean, they've disclosed now what some of the locations kind of threw at Amazon to get
Right.
Amazon.
Right.
That's a lot, but also growing it from start. And some of the cities, I mean, Hampton actually has some fairly large tracts of land still available.
Right.
Which is pretty impressive considering there's not a whole lot of overall land left. We mostly have to redevelop, but Hampton Road Center.
No, you know, one of the amazing things, and again, the difference between where I was with very limited land availability and some decent-sized tracts of property still here available in Hampton gives us a nice kind of blend. And to your point, let's say, and talk about maybe Amazon for just a second, even though that facility is going up into Northern Virginia, which is great news for the Commonwealth of Virginia, those folks will also be looking for ancillary locations for jobs that are related to Amazon. So I do think, as a Old Dominion economist pointed out in the newspapers here lately, that there is going to be spill-off from the Amazon news of coming into Northern Virginia that is good news for Hampton Roads. And our job, obviously, is to make sure that Hampton gets those opportunities here, because we do have the Hampton Roads Center. We do have other locations. We've got our downtown where we can find ways to really get those kinds of jobs in a place where people would be proud to be working every day.
And are we becoming a bigger, better known metro region? I mean, Norfolk landed IKEA. I know Hampton wanted it, went after it for years. Norfolk, this is center of population is still on that side of the water, but it kind of puts us in that ballpark of Charlotte, Atlanta. You know, are we becoming more known as a region, and will we gain because of that, do you think?
It's a work in progress. We have to compete regionally if we're going to be successful, as was Charlotte, as was these other areas. We stand together, or we are going to continue to have the slow growth that the region overall has been experiencing. But the name is getting out. Our cooperation and agreements like cost-sharing arrangements are really going to place us now where we properly should be. We've got this great port that we feed off of. We're the largest concentration of military in the entire world. We've got tremendous higher education institutions.
Really, they have. I mean, Hampton University has grown tremendously in the advanced degrees. Old Dominion used to be, you know, more of a commuter college. It has boomed. It's got a lot of advanced degrees now and doing much more research. William & Mary has always, you know, been extremely prominent, but it's creating much more of a research emphasis. Of course, you throw in NASA, which we've had, but has more spin-offs.
Well, all of those, and then when you look at what we really do hope, we're working with our friends at NASA very closely now, and there are some really exciting commercialization opportunities that come out of NASA Langley, and I think we can capitalize a lot more. We have to find ways for those commercial opportunities coming out of NASA to make sure they stay here in this area.
I think the federal government's had a hard time figuring out
Yeah.
how to facilitate that, how to let that go, whatever that process is.
Well, it is. Same with the higher education institutions. And the intellectual, you know, making sure that you can, do the intellectual property thing correctly has been a bugaboo for us for a long time, but it's getting better. I think everybody has loosened up a little bit relative to wanting to keep that technology or that invention or that commercial opportunity here in this area. And I think we're doing a much better job of setting ourselves up to take advantage of it.
So for people who don't see the big picture that we've just talked about and who are very fixated only in landing whatever brand it is that they want to see, and that they've probably seen in a much larger city than Hampton's population has, whether that's a Dave & Buster's or a Cheesecake Factory or a Trader Joe's or Wegmans or whatever it is, what is it that you say to them?
Well, we still have the ability to draw in a much larger area, and retail is, in particular, is pretty much a, you know, it's a brutal business because it's all about traffic counts, rooftops, and income levels. And in Hampton, as was the case in Norfolk, we're an oblong market, and you got to make a case for an oblong market because part of our bullseye is in the water.
So retailers draw lines. So here's my dot where I'm looking at being, and then they say how many people and how much money is here, 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 and here. And in Hampton, as it was in Norfolk, a lot of that's water. So there's no people there.
It is. So we got to make sure that retailers are aware of the drive times, and they look at drive times as much as they look at a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius. So we have the ability to get really a lot of people into Hampton in a very short amount of time from the peninsula and even from the south side. So we have to make that case. We are getting some looks and some shares and we've got some assets that are unique to Hampton, and I think there's some new news coming that I think people will be excited about. And our job is to find those things that both Hampton residents want, but have greater appeal for everybody else on the peninsula to enjoy as well. There's no reason they shouldn't be home here in Hampton.
That's great. And I think, too, as our tourism market grows, that gives us extra dollars that are disposable, but that aren't necessarily here all the time, but that counts into the mix. So the more we grow that sports tourism, the weekend events, the things going on, that helps attract. Because some of the things these people see are in tourism-heavy markets.
Well, I was really pleased to see the continuing growth in the tourism industry here in Hampton, and there's so many things to see and do, and the word is beginning. I think that the marketing for that industry is really picked up well, because you can look at it in the statistics. People are coming to Hampton to take a look at all the assets that we do have, all the attractions that we've got, to enjoy our riverfronts, to enjoy our parks, to enjoy our events, and we just need to keep telling that story. But we have some really unique assets in the way of tourism, and I feel really good about being able to build off of that as well. It's nice to have that when we're talking about economic development. And sports marketing, by the way, is a big business, and I think we can really play in that market well.
I think so too. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
I could keep you all here all day because
Well,
I have so
anytime.
many questions, but we'll get you back sometime.
Love to anytime.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope you have learned a little bit about what we're doing for economic development and how Chuck Rigney is going to fit into the city and where we're headed. Thanks for watching.